Peace, family. It's your brother King Cam, and welcome back to another episode of the Campaign TV show. I am your host, brother King Cam, and on this episode, we're going to be discussing tyranny in America, riots, and protests break out. So, one of the things that I've been noticing up and down my timeline as these protests and riots have caught fire all across the country, starting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where our brother George Floyd was senselessly murdered by domestic terrorists posing as police officers. What the narrative is now is division in the black community. Division in the black community because of the riots, because of the protesting, because of the agitation in the country. So on social media, the common narrative is you have one side who are for the protest, who are with the revolution, if you say. And then you have some of those who are trying to understand the purpose of some of the activity that's happening. So I want to bring some clarity and kind of give my thoughts and give my perspective on what's going on. So one thing I want to be clear about is the fact that you do have people that are peacefully protesting. There are people who are peacefully protesting against the senseless murder of our brother George Floyd. What we are not understanding is there are what are called agent provocateurs amongst the protesters that are agitating and inciting criminal behavior. So the definition, as Webster gives it, or as dictionary.com gives it, agent provocateurs: a person who induces others to break the law so that they can be convicted. So an agent provocateur is one who induces, one who incites, one who forces others to break the law so that they can be convicted. So what we understand is that there are plants or agents that are placed among those who are protesting, acting like they for the cause. Yeah, George Floyd, no justice, no peace. But really that motive is to incite you to do something criminal to get you convicted. There are videos floating around social media now where the protesters are showing up, and beside buildings with glass windows are bricks already in place. They are bricks there so you can get incited by people agitating the protesters to now pick up a brick and throw it through a glass window. Agent provocateurs. And when we don't have all of the information and we just going off emotion, then we come against one another. So now you see in the black community, there's a divide and a division against those who want to protest and those who have an opinion about those who protest. Because I don't know what the people doing that's not protesting but got an opinion about those who are. So the house is divided now. And what does the enemy do? The enemy comes among the righteous and causes division. The enemy comes among us and tell lies. And they start trouble between us so that we can kill one another. And in this case, so that we can kill each other's spirit. See? Because what you're seeing is the warrior spirit of our ancestors. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the Joshua generation is the most fearless generation ever. But you have those who want to kill that spirit of fearlessness, which is going to lead us into a new government. We have to be careful about these things that's going on, family. We have to open up our eyes. And we must not be quick to judge. And that's a lot of our problem. We are quick to judge those who are protesting. We're not understanding what's really going on. Especially if you're not in the streets. If you're not face to face. If you're not really facing this thing, then how do you even know what's happening? Except that you're watching a video or a live stream. So the question is, well, why are the people really rising up? Why are the people really rising up? Because remember, we didn't start this. Black people did not start protesting and rioting for no reason. But we have several examples, several cases or case studies that we could look at to see why black people now have become frustrated to the point where now they are rising up in all of these cities across America. And it's moving. The spirit is moving now throughout the people. So it's going into one city catching fire, and the next city catching fire, and the next city. Well, the people are rising up because of all the years of frustration that's built up. Just think about the journey and the condition of black people in America ever since we've been here. We have always had to constantly fight against tyranny. We always had to constantly fight against white supremacy, slavery, Jim Crow era, black codes, mass incarceration. We constantly, era after era, every new generation of black people born into America has some type of fight that they have to overcome, some type of obstacle that they have to overcome. Constantly seeing black death, constantly having your mother and father and family members put on display for the disobedience to white supremacy. So what you're seeing is decades of frustration building up. Decades of frustration building up in the people. So now it has reached a point of overflow. Malcolm said it was a powder keg in America of racial tension that was about to explode. And what you're seeing is the slow explosion or fast explosion of that racial tension, of that powder keg, of that frustration. But the problem is we don't really know how to directly guide that anger. We don't know how to properly or productively guide that energy. But after seeing George Floyd, which is the latest, being murdered in front of our eyes, that would incite you emotionally. That would emotionally charge you to the point where you really don't care no more. If they kill us, then we got to destroy everything that even represent them. We got to destroy everything that has ever wronged us. This is the mindset of the people. Black people constantly had to deal with economic oppression. Constantly have to deal with the mental trauma from slavery. Constantly have to deal with psychological trauma. Constantly have to deal with degradation and all of these different things that's going on. So you got to think about the mindset of the people who are rising up. And you have to think about the condition that they have been raised in that would even cause this type of mindset, cause this type of behavior. So on social media, as the riots and protests started to spread all across the country, in Atlanta, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms spoke out to Atlanta, and all the mayors across these different cities speaking to that city. And we're not going to disrespect Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms or speak negatively of her, because she's just doing what she has to do to get her city under control. She's doing her job. But dear Mayor Keisha, and all of the mayors around the country and other cities, voting is not going to fix the problem. And that's one thing specifically that Keisha Lance Bottoms mentioned, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms mentioned, was going to the polls to vote. Well, we've been voting ever since we had the right to vote. We have shown up loyally to the polls, specifically for Democrats to vote. We have followed everything that the establishment has asked us to do as it pertains to being able to change legislation, to change the current condition and the way that the system is set up so that black people are not in this situation. We have done everything that you asked us to do, and it has not worked. The condition of black people actually has gotten worse. Before desegregation, when we were actually separated to our own selves and had to spend money in our community, we had our own hospitals, had our own entertainment, had our own sports leagues, we was doing just fine. But were we the looters of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Were we the looters of any of the black communities that were bombed and set on fire, that was just minding their business? Or were you the looters? Was the United States government the ones that came in and destroyed what we had set up for ourselves? All because you couldn't stand to see black people separate and doing for self. Because they understand that their economy can no longer rise, can no longer progress without the oppression of the darker people and poor white people on the planet Earth. So voting is not going to fix this. And what you're seeing in the people is the frustration from voting and nothing changing. From putting their faith in these politicians with nothing changing. So now we have to have actionable plans. We have to have actionable steps that people can get involved in now so they can start to see immediate change. They can start to see change within 6 months to a year to 18 months. Voting is not going to put that type of change in place. So we got to do it ourselves. So there has to be a new leadership in place. There has to be a new voice for the people that visualizes actual change coming to the people. See? Come on now, family. Because we can't sit on social media and ask the people why they doing this, why they looting against that, because they are frustrated. They fed up. How would you be able to back a dog into a corner or any animal into a corner before? How long would you be able to do that before they're going to lash back out? How long can you abuse an animal before they defend themselves? How long is white supremacy going to keep their foot on the neck of the original people and poor white people in this country before we decide enough is enough? How long? And some of us who don't quite understand want to point the finger and blame and try to tell people how they should feel about being overly and overtly oppressed, how we should do it. Well, this is the wrong way. Well, what is the right way? Some would ask. What is the right way? Because I'm frustrated. I did what they told me to do, and I still haven't gotten any results. So now what? I'm going to just tear everything up. Misguided, but worthy of the anger and frustration that's been built up. So, Richmond, looting, stores and retail shops. You know, nobody agrees or condones unlawful behavior and criminal activity. So you running in and looting GameStop and DTLR and, you know, all these other places is really not attacking the focus of why we're in the streets. It's really not. It's not addressing that. And again, we're not condoning or agreeing with that behavior. But you dealing with a people who are economically oppressed. People who are economically impoverished. People who live in poverty and have lived in generational poverty for all the days of their lives. So you have some who take an opportunity to upgrade themselves. And I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. I'm just giving it to you real. We got to keep it 100. We got to keep it a stack, because if we're not, we are feeding into some type of false reality. So you have a bunch of self-righteous individuals on Facebook talking about what they would have did and what they wouldn't do. Well, you ain't out there, and you can't say what you would have did if you was out there. You don't know. The fact of the matter is, we should be trying to guide that energy to something productive. Not tear down or kill the spirit of those who want to do something. They just don't know what to do. So they doing anything. It's a deeper meaning to this. And the people have uncontrolled anger and frustration that needs to be guided and not condemned. Their energy needs to be channeled into positive solutions instead of unorganized activity. So that's what you're seeing in the riots in different cities, is a bunch of unorganized activity. So we need to now take the opportunity to mobilize and strategize so we can effectively accomplish goals. The first move, or the first chess piece, or the first thing you should do when you're setting goals out for yourself is you need to write them down. Understand your roadmap. Know where you're going. Put it in the GPS. We got to bring it up to modern times. Put it in the GPS. Put the directions or the address where you want to go in the GPS. And the GPS effectively is going to give you the route. So if we understand that we want to make our community safer and start community policing, then we need to create the route. How do we get to a place of community policing? So we have to develop that. That's called planning. That's called strategizing. Organization. Minister Sharif said that we have to be supremely organized. Supremely organized. If you notice, the enemy doesn't do anything off the cuff. He does everything organized. Even in his protection of the state, with the National Guard and with the police and things of that nature, everybody's organized. The whole thing is organized. We the only ones that's unorganized. And this is why we cannot seem to make any headway. It's why we seem to continue to always spin our wheels, because we don't want to come together. We don't want to unify. So you hear some people saying, well, you know, how is God in all of this? Where is God in all of this? You know, dealing with COVID-19, we was in an epidemic or a pandemic right before George Floyd. And it seems like many and most of the country have forgot about that, even though they're wearing their masks, but social distancing is completely out the door right now. So what is God trying to tell us? Because in everything, the minister says, in everything, God's hands is present. In everything that's happening in your life, in the country, God's hand is present. So the God has hijacked the COVID-19 virus that the enemy created for the destruction of us and using it to capture the attention of all of the people. The COVID-19 virus shut down everything. No NFL, no NBA, no sport and play, no club, no vacation, no none of that. No hot girl summer, no none of that. Shut the whole thing down, stopped everybody's income from moving. Why? Because he wants the attention of all the people. He used it to set down all the sport and play and distractions so that you can have a clear view of the times that we living in. So if you're a student of scripture and you actually go down the revelation, you see the times that we living in. If you listen to what Jesus was prophesying about in the books of Matthew and Luke, he's prophesying about a future time with a future people. And because we've been stuck in the rat race, because we have not paid attention to these things, because we have given too much credibility to those who have no credibility on information, we have gone off of the path. That's why we can't recognize what's happening right now. The death of Brother George Floyd has a deeper meaning, not only police injustice, but all injustice that black people have suffered. And whenever dissatisfaction of all the people has reached a certain percent or a certain level, then there has to be a complete change. So George Floyd's tragic murder and another case of police brutality, domestic terrorism, and white supremacy is also a sign or a signal of all the injustice. Because now you deal with the disrespect for black life. You deal with the devaluing of black people in America. You deal with the faulty and the broken criminal justice system who never gives justice. What is justice? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that justice is a principle of fair dealing. Meaning that justice doesn't see color, justice doesn't see race, justice is fair dealing and deals with the truth. And we know all too well that if a black man go to court, it's more or less not about the truth. It's about who has the best lawyer, who's friends with the judge, who has the ability to speak the language the best to convince the jury. Evidence is really not at the forefront of the situation. And they have mastered the ability to manipulate the evidence. So in some of these movies that you see, they'll say that the truth is what I say it is. I got that from Shooter. The senator said the truth is what I say it is, meaning he has the ability to manipulate the truth. They trying to play God. They're trying to play God, manipulate the truth. Why? Because they're not based or founded on the principle of justice. So there has to be a complete change. That's why new leadership is so important. So I don't want to hear nothing about people saying that we don't have no more great leaders or we don't have anybody that is able to step up to the plate, because my question to you is, what are you doing? See, because all of the great leaders before us and before this time, you have access to them. You have access to their minds. You have access to the words. You have access to their spirit. So why can't you get access to that and then duplicate it using the God within you so that you can effectively make impact and change today? Because our children are counting on us. They ain't counting on Malcolm. They ain't counting on Martin. They ain't counting on Marcus Garvey. They ain't counting on W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T, Assata Shakur. The list go on. They're not counting on them. We stand on their shoulders. But it's on us now to take that knowledge, take that wisdom, and act on it. They didn't even have the technology that we have today, or the technological advances that we have today to make this thing speed up. We just refuse to listen to the solution, which is unity for justice. So the people not taking it no more. A complete change has to happen. So what you're seeing now is a real shift in the paradigm. See, part of that change is black people not being the doormats to white supremacy anymore. Part of that change is black people beginning to see who the common enemy is. The beginning of changing this government, changing into a new world. See, is the unorganized chaos, but based on the same principle, which is liberation, which is justice, which is freedom, which is equality. Now, we just got to take that mindset and we got to guide it properly. We got to go ahead and start to compartmentalize different emotions and say, okay, well, we can't get emotional. The minister said we got to rise above the thinking. We got to rise above emotion into the thinking of God. So we have to be strategic planners. The God thinks way ahead. We got to do the same. We have to do the same. So the beginning may start with unorganized chaos, which can be channeled into productive activity, but the right leadership has to be in place. The right leadership has to be in place. So no, I don't agree with the condemnation of our brothers and sisters who are out on the front line doing something, because they have realized and come into the fact and come to grips with this country has never meant us any good. And if you are a student of scripture, then you understand that this is the modern day Babylon who was doomed to fall. So what you are witnessing today is the fall of America. And because America has to fall, and the wicked have to be removed from the planet Earth, the righteous are to be the new rulers. But who's going to step up to the plate? Who is going to be the ones to ascend in that leadership that's going to help guide the people who have no guidance right now? And that's not because it's not available. It's because they choose to listen to the leaders that have been handpicked for them. There you go. There you go. See, we'll listen to a handpicked Negro. But when you have one that stands on moral truths and principles like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's a sellout. When I ask the question, how did he sell out? You can't even answer the question. When you have something negative to say, you can't even ask how he has wronged you. You just keep regurgitating and parroting the same white supremacist talking points. He has done anything for the black community. Well, what have you done for the black community? The minister has a resume. Where's yours? Please. But why? Because our mindset. We may be black skinned, but we got a white mind. So you thinking just like the white man. So you have effectively became an enemy to your own self and to your own people. So what we got to do, family, in 2020 is we have to start making examples of those who don't want to be on code. If you don't want to be on code, well, what we're trying to strive to do, then we have to make an example of you, and you have to be put out from among us. Because we're not in the same mind frame of division. We ain't talking about religion. We ain't talking about nationality. We ain't talking about none of that right now. All we doing is coming together on common grounds, trying to put together actionable steps and plans to really get some change in our community. So we have to protect our women and children. We have to protect our family. When we have to protect our interests. So we got a lot of work to do. It's plenty of work to do. And the lesson say, big feels awake, the wide awake man. So now that you know what the deal is, you know who the open enemy is, you know how much work it is to be done, let's stop being Twitter fingers and Instagram fingers and let's get to work. Let's go ahead and pick up our load. Let's pick up our burden and do what we can do in our own local cities and our local community. Let's stop being agents of division in our own family. And that's when you'll start to see a change. That's when you'll start to see a change. So we can't continue to be agents of division amongst our own people and, you know, and say all these different things on social media because we're not really understanding what's happening. So as your grandmother and your mother used to tell you, if you don't have nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. But because social media has allowed everybody to put out an opinion, then everybody puts out opinion. That's fine. But let's make sure that we staying on code. Let's make sure that we got each other back, at least in the public, so the enemy doesn't see that we're divided. Because if the enemy sees that we're divided, what chance do we have? He already know he can come in amongst us. He could pull one of us to the side and tell them X, Y, and Z and be able to get them to come against us. Because that's what they do. That's been their pattern all over the planet Earth. To go in acting as a mediator between the two sides when really their whole goal is to get the two sides to fight each other, kill each other, so they can come out on top and oppress both the sides. So we got to be better, family. We have to be better. Tyranny in America, riots and protests breaking out. This is just my thoughts and perspective on it. I appreciate you for watching. Thank you. Thank you. Make sure you share this out. If I said anything that was helpful, productive, to help you think, please make sure you share it with a family, with friends, and everything like that. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure y'all stay tuned in. It's the Campaign TV Show podcast. I am your brother King Cam. Peace.